So let's talk about a document that's become, well, legendary in the business world, the Netflix Culture Deck. It first dropped back in 2009, and this, simple PowerPoint ended up getting millions of views, and it pretty much changed the entire conversation around corporate culture. So what on earth makes a slide deck so revolutionary? Let's dive in.
To really get just how different Netflix's approach is, think about this for a second. Imagine a company where the entire rulebook for taking time off was just 2 words. What would those 2 words even be? Yep, that's it. Take vacation. No tracking your hours, no weird accrual systems, just a simple, powerful instruction that's totally built on trust. And it's the perfect window into their whole philosophy. Okay, so they do the same thing with company money. What if the entire expense policy for everything from a cup of coffee to a flight around the world was just 5 words long?
Act in Netflix's best interests. I mean, it's so simple, right? But it puts this huge amount of trust and responsibility right onto the employee. These policies aren't just little quirks. They're the result of a really deep and thought-out cultural framework.
So where did all this come from? Well, it all started with this 125-page slide deck that co-founder Reed Hastings published. It was super candid, really direct, and it just went viral in a way that no HR document ever had before, or since, really.
And when I say viral, I mean viral. We're talking more than 5 million views on just the original presentation. It became like required reading in Silicon Valley and everywhere else, and it kicked off this decade-long debate about what a high-performance culture could actually look like.
At the very heart of this whole thing is a really simple idea: freedom and responsibility. The deck basically argues that company values shouldn't just be these nice-sounding words you hang on a wall. They've got to be real, something you actually live by.
And this slide, well, it shows something we've all seen, right? Those generic values posters you see in every office lobby. Things like integrity, communication, and excellence. They sound awesome, but do they really mean anything?
And this is the killer example. Enron, the company that famously went down in flames in a massive fraud scandal, had those exact same values plastered in their lobby: integrity, communication, respect, excellence. It just goes to show you the huge and sometimes really dangerous gap between what a company says it values and what it actually rewards.
So, this is the most crucial point for Netflix. A company's actual values aren't what you write down. They're demonstrated by who gets rewarded, who gets promoted, and who gets let go. It's all about the behaviors and skills you actively look for in the people around you every single day.
And this brings us right back to their core philosophy, perfectly shown here with the yin and yang. It's all about creating this culture of freedom and responsibility. The idea is, if you want to give your employees incredible freedom, you have to hire incredibly responsible people. One just can't exist without the other.
Okay, so that leads us to how they think about talent. Netflix is famous for saying, "We are a team, not a family." Their goal is to operate like a professional sports team, where you have a star player in every single position.
But raw talent isn't everything. They have this really strict no brilliant jerks rule. The thinking is that even the smartest person in the room isn't worth it if they tear the team apart. They believe that brilliant people are also perfectly capable of being decent human beings, and they absolutely insist on it.
So how do you maintain this dream team? Well, one of the most famous and, let's be honest, controversial tools they use is called the keeper test. Managers are supposed to ask themselves this question about every single person on their team. If they told me they were leaving for a similar job somewhere else, would I fight hard to keep them?
And the answer is pretty direct. If a manager's answer to that question is no, then that person is let go, though they get a really generous severance package. It sounds harsh, I know, but for them, it's how they make sure they always have stars in every position.
So you've got this team of superstars. How do you manage them? Well, not with a bunch of rules and processes. Netflix's philosophy is context, not control.
The logic goes like this. As most companies get bigger, they just add more and more rules to handle the complexity. Netflix thinks that just slows everything down and kills creativity. So their solution is to hire great people faster than the complexity grows. You get amazing people, you give them the context of what needs to be done, and then you trust them to make the right call. But here's the thing. This culture isn't some static thing set in stone. It has to evolve. And just recently, in June of 2024, Netflix announced a really rare revision to its famous playbook, updating it for the company they are right now.
What's so amazing is just how rarely they actually make changes.
We're talking only 5 major revisions in 15 years. That makes this latest update a really big deal, and it shows how deliberate they are about keeping their culture relevant. So the new, shorter memo is built around these 4 core principles. They're doubling down on the whole dream team and people over process ideas, but they're also adding new concepts like uncomfortably exciting, which is a cool way to say they embrace change, and great and always better, which is all about constant improvement.
Look, this all sounds great in a slide deck, but it raises a huge question. What's the reality of actually living and working inside this kind of radical culture? Does it really work in the real world?
This is the big question critics and even some former employees have asked. You know, when you combine that intense keeper's test with radical honesty, does that really create a supportive place to work? Or does it just create a culture of fear, where everyone's afraid to make one wrong move?
And to be fair, Netflix is actually really open about this. The culture deck itself says that while a lot of people thrive in this kind of environment, other people who really value job security and stability might find it pretty scary. They flat out admit that their culture isn't for everyone.
In the end, their entire philosophy is kind of summed up by this amazing quote that they used to close out their manifesto. It's not about rules or micromanaging. It's about inspiring this shared passion for a huge, ambitious goal. And it kind of leaves us all with a question, right? What does it really take to build a team that actually yearns for that endless sea?